The thing that's important about authoritarianism is a lot of time there's an incredible focus on the authoritarian leader, because so much of authoritarianism is about, obeying authority, especially the authority that comes from, a strong leader. But the flip side of authoritarianism, in the part that's most concerning to me, is the authoritarians in the general public that will obey authority, that don't question authority at all, and will look to obey the leader. Because when you really boil down to it, when you really boil it down, individuals like Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Pol Pot, or other authoritarian dictators are just a single person. They are made powerful because so many persons obey them unquestioningly. That's what gives them their power. What I find most worrisome in today's world has been the rise of authoritarianism itself. Now, this rise, and we've seen this historically before, is often tied to political malaise and economic depredations. So, for example, we see in 1929 the Great Depression and the stock market collapse, bringing a degree of poverty to the Western world, in which fascism and totalitarianism and authoritarianism were readily adopted in Germany, but also in Spain and in Italy, as well as the ultranationalism and authoritarianism under the Emperor Hirohito in Japan. This forms.
As politics have been changing around the world, many new authoritarian regimes have been on the rise, in places such as France, the United Kingdom, Italy, and the Philippines. These regimes seem to have particular things in common: a want for isolation, a polarization, whether it be left or right, and typically a few radical policies within their respective proposals. It is important to shed light on these leaders and movements, as authoritarianism has led to great turmoil throughout the world in the past.
Go back about 10 years, you see these movements starting in Eastern Europe, going on with the rise of more fascistic or neo-Nazi or white supremacist types of political parties. And indeed, Europe's political system has been plagued, whether it's Marine Le Pen in France, or it's the Five Star Movement in Italy, or whether, it's Farage and Boris Johnson and the whole move for Brexit. They're appealing to this kind of white supremacy, vaguely authoritarian kind of thrust.
Marine Le Pen, daughter of nationalist Jean-Marie Le Pen, is the leader of the National Rally Party in France. Le Pen attempted to lead a de-denomination of the National Rally by expelling members displaying racism or anti-Semitism. However, she came under fire after a series of quotes showing the same kind of intolerance she wanted to avoid. With legalized oppression of a target group of people as one of the modern characteristics of authoritarianism, one might argue that Le Pen's comments comparing Muslims praying in the streets to the Nazi occupation of France could be considered a warning sign. This is especially because of Le Pen's power and status as a political leader in France. Le Pen fears of the twin evils of Anglo-Saxon multiculturalism and political correctness, says CNN, and political isolationism and economic nationalism, in her opinion, is the best way to combat this. Boris Johnson is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and has been a member of the Conservative Party since July 2019. Although being a member of this party, he adopted a socially liberal stance, believing in issues such as LGBT rights and gay marriage. In addition, he became a leading figure in the Brexit campaign, which heightened his level of power and publicity in the United Kingdom. However, Johnson is highly controversial as he has been accused of making dishonest, racist, and sexual remarks. In terms of economics, Boris Johnson has complained about the high tax for the rich, but has been labeled as liberal in terms of his economic and social ideas for his future party membership. The Five Star Movement, which is currently led by Beppe Grillo, is part of the right wing in Italy. The campaign of the party calls for no alliances with any other party because they found it difficult to agree with any of the other parties siding in certain politics. However, members in the group are part of both of the different sides of each party, and despite the different views within the party, they preach to live by the 5 principles of their group. Populism is also deeply rooted in the history of Italy, as well as this group, and the party preaches to support the people within the group. They're an internet-driven movement, and the movement's political discourse often refers to the internet as a solution to many social, economic, and environmental problems. The movement is an anti-immigration belief and believes that all illegal immigrants should be expelled from Italy.
Rodrigo Duterte is a member of the PDP-Laban party, frequently in the news for his terrible comments against drug addicts, former President Barack Obama, the EU, and additionally vowing to kill 100,000 criminals. His party advocates for a transition to a federal, semi-presidential parliamentary form of government from the current unitary presidential system, which would take away some of the direct election components and instead rely on appointments. As far as his personal beliefs are considered, he wants to pursue isolation from EU and the US, yet wants to pursue closer ties with China and Russia. As you can see, each of these examples show a common theme of wanting to isolate their own country or party from other global influences. This could cause them to lose access to resources and allies and miss out on overall success. As noted in Marine Le Pen's political values and beliefs, she follows this overall trend of isolationism in France, as she wants to eliminate any external powers from interfering with her regime, with the United States being one of the central powers she wants to push away from. Similar to Le Pen, Boris Johnson follows the same mindset of straying away from the political atmosphere of the United States, wanting to be as unassociated as possible. As previously mentioned, Duterte is in favor of isolating the Philippines from outside powers, including the US and EU, but wants to still pursue other relations with Russia and China. The major and most well-known implications of authoritarianism are, of course, oppression and injustice. However, countries led by dictators/dictator-like rulers have been found to have higher rates of mental illness and lower levels of health and life expectancy. As leaders begin dismantling democracy, basic freedoms such as speech and press either diminish or are taken away entirely. Even writers of the articles we read are affected by authoritarianism. When providing coverage of these regimes, they are never safe. Some have reported being beaten or witnessing their own mother being shot. Authoritarian regimes feel it is necessary to censor everything that isn't following their agenda, making it hard for even their own citizens to know what is happening.
Well, the traditional left parties abandon their core constituencies. Who pops up in their shadow? After the financial crisis and a moment of stress, think about Greece, Syriza. Think about Spain, Podemos. Think about Scotland and the SNP. These are populist movements. These are nationalist in the sense that they want to regain control of the national economy. They want to shield it from globalization. The one thing many of them have in common, both left and right in Europe, they all want out of the euro because they see that as the cause of many of their ills. But if you look at the vote share of these parties, they are collapsing. The SPD.
We've shown various leaders and movements within the modern age that display authoritarian tendencies, as well as how detrimental these tendencies and governance styles have been in the past. What's particularly concerning about this modern authoritarianism is that it's typically carried out under a democratic process, whereas the authoritarianism of the past was often not. Authoritarianism is rarely talked about at global major conferences, and the United Nations is yet to condemn any repressive regimes in China, Cuba, Russia, and more. It is important that we recognize this ourselves, as individuals living under these regimes are the ones who will be most effective in stopping it.